Hello there, I just want to make a quick video. I won't keep for long, or I don't know how long this will end up being, but lately I've been seeing, the alien agenda trend being pushed even more, and so I just felt the need to break away from my little vacation here of ridiculous nonsense Star Wars video games, which is obviously part of that same fiction, I guess. But this whole alien agenda thing, I wanted to make this video because apparently at the center of all of it is Q Anon. And his name there gives it away. So again, switching to this map for this discussion, I've used this picture before, and it works perfectly to describe everything because somebody took the time to make this map. And while it's from the alien agenda perspective, it still helps to translate basically all the information and culminating in one very comprehensive meme. And I mean, like, this picture itself, just to zoom out, if I can find my mouse here. It's a massive picture. You need to be able to zoom in to see it. I'll link it in the description section below to my Facebook page where you can download it. But I will say you have to watch it on full screen, or you have to find, a monitor. It's better than a phone. But this Snakes and Ladders map, it says it all, really. However, let's see if we can take it down a notch. That's too hard to read. But my point to this was to say, while it gives a lot of information, this Snakes and Ladders map, and you can just look at it, it's massive. The one thing that told me everything I need to hear as far as what this alien agenda nonsense really is the signature of the map. Now notice they spelled White Rabbit wrong. I don't know, whatever. I just thought that was weird, but you can make of it what you will. Now the thing is this alien agenda is to push the whole Jesus was an alien, they want to try to discredit the Bible, blah blah blah, and this has been their game plan since day one. And you can't rebrand fallen angels, fallen powers as aliens unless you first ditch the biblical model and go to the heliocentric nonsense NASA lies. But you'll notice, aside from everything, this nonsense about the Pleiadians. The aliens are the good guys, and they're good. It's nonsense. They're going to claim that Jesus was one of these Pleiadians, and that they're here to save us from ourselves and from these man-made religions that are ruining us. You notice the triangle imagery there, but also Q Anon. Okay. In Gnosticism, the religion of the Freemasons, the 7 Anons are the wannabe gods of Sophia Satan, and they call the God of the Bible the demiurge. They think the God of the Bible is the bad guy, and they think Lucifer's the good guy. They're clinically insane. So that's the first warning bell right there. You're talking about a guy, or a group of guys, or an AI computer that's named after the gods of Gnostic Freemasonry, lowercase g. It's a shortcut to thinking. And not only that, but you notice this map also constantly references quantum ascension, Mayan calendar, all these other quote-unquote religions, everything but support for the Bible. And they're talking about aliens coming to save us, retarded ascended masters, which are just Nephilim. Remember, all ghosts and spirits anyone's ever seen is a dead Nephilim. Humans go to Sheol when we die. And anyone who's astral projected has seen the silver cord knows. The silver cord goes up to God and down to Sheol, or Abraham's bosom. This idea of a pole shift as well, pushing the nonsense ball earth lie, because you can't rebrand aliens from fallen angels if you don't first create this whole outer space nonsense, millions and millions of light years away, the aliens are coming to save us today. Nonsense, right? But then also when you go back up to the top here, I think it's up here somewhere, they talk about the moon landings being faked and the coming race and the Vril Society. But the thing is it's always with this alien agenda. They talk about ancient gods, Nimrod, who is considered the Freemasons' greatest 33rd. They talk about Saturn. They think Saturn is Satan. That's what the Brotherhood of Saturnalia is all about. A lot of people think the planets are actually just portals, and that Saturn is the portal to hell or whatever, and that's where Satan is. I don't know. It's all nonsense to me, but you got the all-seeing eye of Hammerhead here, and them worshiping knowledge and Luciferian light. You know, when you join the Freemasons, you say, well, I was lost in darkness, now the third degree, blah, blah, blah. I got the light of Nimrod and the fancy pants and lollipops with the Nimrod boner jammed right up my kuru. But, you know, when you join Freemasonry, if you claim to be a Christian, how is that possible? Because the Bible says there's no light, no worshipful master other than Jesus and the Holy Spirit. So when you join Freemasonry, you forsake that. Oh, and wives out there in YouTube land, know that your husbands have to take their wedding rings off and forsake that. Above all else, the Freemason Lodge comes first, their brotherhood, where they worship their wieners, basically. That's what the Nimrod boner is all about. But yeah, so these sad boys, I'm not knocking the third levels. They don't know nothing. I'm talking about the command structure that I'm pissed off at. Guys like my grandpa, black worshipful masters. You know, even at that, the Luciferian 33rds, they think they're good guys. The two paths, the twin pillars, you know, Jackin and Boaz, even the blue pill, the red pill, you know, Democrat, Republican, blah, blah, blah. Choose the middle path, Yeshua, Jesus, you know, not one of their fixed roads. Because you get the high-level Satanists are in the OTO. Not all of them are the psychopathic, blood-drinking, child-molesting demon spawn. Some of them are just Luciferians who think they're the good guys. I don't know which one my grandpa was. He was a black worshipful master, so it's possible he was, you know, scary high level. But guys like Trump, I don't think are black worshipful masters. I think he's a light sider. I think he honestly thinks he's a good guy. And same with the Golden Dawn. Any musician you hear singing about black hole suns and like David Bowie's last album, or even Tolkien, a lot of these guys are in this hermetic order of the Golden Dawn. You got to beware of these people. But the truth of the matter is like I said, this map is so massive to go over. The point of this video wasn't to talk about necessarily secret society stuff that I've already reiterated, but this alien agenda nonsense that's being pushed. And it all goes back to paperclip, like right here. And even the Nazis, I think they were deceived. I think they honestly thought they were helping aliens or making deals with aliens. But in reality, it was just, you know, the fallen powers and principalities returning, rebranded. I mean, it's a shortcut to thinking when you find all the proofs for it. Like government agencies sitting on thousands of files talking about how not only are aliens hurt by prayer and calling on the name of Jesus, it's the only thing ever recorded to seemingly stop an alien abduction. Huh? Like, that's a shortcut to thinking. And, you know, Roswell, it wasn't a crash. They opened some kind of portal and something came in. That's what the Babylon working Amalatra ritual that JPL, Jack Parsons, and L. Ron Hubbard did. But even at that, with this alien nonsense and talking about Q, or this Pindar, this rod of rulership, which might be the missing piece of Osiris, the phallus, could be their rod of rulership, you know. And so in this map, all these Q drops and all this other nonsense that keeps coming out, just like Dr. Kent Hovind once said, who's also a ball earther, but no one's perfect, that they'll give you good food like rat poison. It's 99% good food. It's that 1% that's the rat poison. And so the alien agenda, claiming that Jesus was an alien, that's the poison. And it's also blaspheming the Holy Spirit, because Jesus said to the Pharisees in the Bible, you know, you basically accuse me of working for the devil. That's blaspheming the Holy Spirit. Whenever you accuse God or Jesus of being of the devil, that's bad. And it goes even worse when you think of Freemason guys, because they think God's the bad guy. They think the God of the Old Testament is some demiurge bad guy. Like, they're insane. It's the same thing as Marcionism or Marconiism or whatever. But like Skull and Bones, like these 33rds, every world leader's a 33rd. Like my grandpa, they drink blood or wine from a human skull and swear to make war on God. Why? And not only that, but from what I've heard, the Skull and Bones skull is Geronimo's skull. Like, I don't know, each lodge probably has their own one. But anyway, I also wanted to point out another thing. If you just can't wrap your mind around the idea that Q is a psyop, is that they keep saying, oh, we're going to drain the swamp, drain the swamp. Nothing ever changes. Hillary Clinton still isn't in jail. It's still left versus right. They were still friends before this all went down. They're still friends now. It's simply Luciferians versus Satanists. And so if you want to believe it or whatever, that's on you. I can't change that. But I'm on the same page as guys like the Holy Hand Grenade. The idea that Q is probably a Tyler quantum computer being run by a group of light-side Luciferians. So when it all hits the fan, they're going to claim the white hats are the good guys. They're going to try to pervert Christianity with absolute Gnosticism in the end. Absolute Gnosticism. And that also goes into the idea of Q Anon having a books list. Did you all know that? That there's a books list. Like book club. You know, you join a book club, there's a list of books they want you to read. Well, to join the Q Anon book club, apparently there's a list of books they want you to read. And almost all of them spit on the Bible and try to discredit the truth of Yeshua Jesus Christ as the Bible says. Remember, the Torah codes, they couldn't have been faked by men. That's proof for the Bible. Also proof that the Hebrew language wasn't corrupted. But anyway, let's check this out. This clip with Gonzo Shamira, Face Like the Sun. He's got this book list nailed down in one of his videos.
But let me get to the heart of why I wanted to make this video real quick. So if you go into the QAnon thing, there are trip codes, and those trip codes you can throw into Google, and you can go to Google Books, and it pulls up this list of books. And, you know, these are like recommended books or just, you know, suggested readings, the types of books that allegedly QAnon or whoever's behind this whole thing is reading or at least tallying in this list. And there's good books here. There are books that you would want to read for research. You would want to read in terms of trying to understand what's going on. But it seems like there's a pattern, a very clear pattern, a very clear anti-Jesus pattern that I'm noticing. And as you see here, you got this one. Obviously, you got the protocols. This is the protocols of the Elders of Zion. But you have all these books. Let me go through some of these, okay? I went through the list, and I just made different tabs for them. This first one, this is The Coming Race, and it has to do with sort of a white supremacy type of thing, which is kind of weird. But, you know, again, I'm not saying that all these books here are the hardcore beliefs of whoever's behind this thing, because some of it is like, you know, some of it is the written work of the enemy, some of it is research exposing the enemy, so it's not just like one thing. However, again, it's just weird that some of the things concerning Jesus is very much of the same type of book. And with this one, this goes into the Vril and the Coming Race and all that kind of stuff. This is like before the Nazi movement. Okay, so this first one here, or the second one, I guess, the Secret Sayings of Jesus by Robert Grant and David Noel Friedman. And if you kind of go through here, this was written in 1960, and Gospel, the Testament, Testimony of the Gospels. It goes into the Gospel of Thomas. Okay, the newly discovered Gospel of Thomas is an important addition to the early Christian literature, and it deserves a fairly thorough study so that it can be set in its proper context. And again, it belongs to the Gnostics, the Nag Hammadi findings and writings and stuff. So again, already we're seeing this pattern begin to form, this anti-Jesus, the anti-Jesus as the Son of God narrative. This is just one of them here. Let me go through a bunch of, there's a whole lot of them. And why was I way down here? I think I had a section. Oh, I think this was another race one that I had just in a tab here. Yeah, it's the whole origin of the Aryan race thing. If I can pull it up. And I think the reason why some of this stuff is in here is because on one hand, you can say it's exposing those people, and this is like the documents that the elite are reading or they believe. On the other hand, it could be that they believe some of this stuff in terms of, hey, we're about to enter this new age of Aquarius, and we're about to eradicate evil and corruption, and part of the misunderstanding of the Nazis was this whole part about the Aryan race being this, sort of a futuristic, going back to an ideal situation of humanity, all that kind of stuff. But the rest of it's all Jesus tab stuff, I think. Okay, so here we go. The historical Jesus and mythical Christ. And if you read the little section here, 18 centuries are a long while in the lifetime of a lie, but a brief span is the eternity of truth. And again, this is a book that was originally published in 1886, which is around the time of theosophy and all that kind of stuff. The New Age ideas were becoming popular and prominent in the occult circles. So there's another point of reference there. This book here, I have this quoted. Let me read the quote here. To whom this book applies on this next book, which I think is, I'll get to the title in a second here. Yeah, Jesus's Bluff is the name of the book. In this section 3, to whom this book applies. Right at the very outset, we want to make clear that Christians are lost for the truth. They are lost for the truth since they are incapable of the truths. Consequently, unlike flattering lies, a book revealing truths is no matter for Christians. It is to differ between genuine Christians and between Christians. Due to that, the sociology calls structural violence. The latter means those individuals calling themselves Christians, since their social environment more or less forces them to confess this sect. There's a huge majority of Christians confessing this sect, since it is considered a good, as good doing so, or because their father, grandfather, basically the genetic fallacy that, a belief is claimed to be true only because of the region they were born in, that kind of thing. William Lane Craig, who's a philosopher, he pretty much debunked that whole idea of the genetic fallacy, because the truthfulness of a claim isn't necessarily determined by where you heard that claim or where you were born. So this is it. Jesus' Bluff, the universal scandal of the world. Again, are they saying, is the Q Anon thing, are they saying, hey, this is part of what the enemy believes, or is this one of those things that they believe or they're researching into? Interesting. Here's another one. Oh, this is the Air Force secret space program, shifting extraterrestrial alliance and Space Force. Michael Salla, again, quoted multiple times here. He's been into the whole UFO thing, the breakaway civilizations, the ET narrative, which is very fascinating, because very early on, again, Age of Deceit, Fallen Angels, and the New World Order, we talked about how the aliens will come reveal themselves as a type of savior figure, right? We didn't know exactly how that would look, but at the time we were like, yeah, the aliens are going to show up. How else could they unite all the world religions if it wasn't from some kind of external force or external entity that would come and show themselves and bring everybody together? Interesting to think about. And the common pattern with that is, again, these extraterrestrials were talking about Jesus, either claiming to be Jesus or saying Jesus, as we understand it, is not who he said he was. So again, same pattern. There's nothing new under the sun. This is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I'll skip that one. I know that there's a lot there. Barbello, the Story of Jesus Christ. This was originally published in 2014 by Ryan Boyson. And in the little description here, it says, everyone knows about Jesus, right? It would be safe to assume that Christians in particular surely do, and given the prevalence of this religion in modern times, it seems that even those outside Christianity are familiar with at least some understanding of the man behind the faith. However, despite the widespread nature of the stories we all know so well, they are actually not based on fact. And beneath our mainstream acceptance are countless alarming stories that must be told once and for all. Again, undermining the Gospels, undermining the Bible as any kind of supernatural source or transcendent source for reality and truth, and pointing to this idea that, hey, there's other stories, and there's so many problems here in terms of how do we know anything about anything in the past? There's an epistemological issue here going on and a debate going on, so you have to have certain presuppositions in the worldview of how you come to knowledge to even bring up this topic, because if you are going to do this with Jesus, then you basically have to question all of recorded human history, including evolution. There's no document that really clearly states evolution until the 1800s, by a family of occultists who are also eugenicists. So there's that. Another one, Jesus the Magician, with a foreword by Bart Ehrman. This is a book by Morton Smith. And this was originally published in 1978. And it's a 20th century classic, uncannily smart, incredibly learned. That was the words of Bart Ehrman. This book challenges traditional Christian teachings about Jesus. While his followers may have seen him as a man from heaven preaching the good news and working miracles, Smith asserts that the truth about Jesus is more interesting and rather unsettling. The real Jesus, only barely glimpsed because of the campaign of disinformation, obfuscation, and censorship by religious authorities, was not Jesus, the Son of God. In actuality, he was Jesus the Magician. Smith marshals all the available evidence, including but not limited to the Gospels. He succeeds in describing just what was said of Jesus by outsiders, those who did not believe him. And again, there's all this truth being exposed. Is part of the truth being exposed narrative going to be, oh, by the way, Jesus isn't who he said he was? I mean, come on, this is pretty obvious, the pattern here. And there's another one here, Jesus, the Jesus book illustrated, the one maybe positive Jesus book, okay? This isn't just another book about Jesus. This book is Jesus directly talking to us, reminding us that his message of love has never changed. Jesus is inviting us to walk with him once again and hear his messages for the 21st century. Jesus takes our hand and reminds us of the true meaning of love, love of self, family, neighbors, our planet, and Mother, Father, one source. Okay? He's doing so by talking about his own life experiences on Earth. He's answering up many of the unanswered questions we have had about his life. Jesus once again reaches out to us in modern language and with practical advice and insight. Again, this is a modern channeling of Jesus, originally published in 2016. What the heck? This is like the same stuff exposed in Age of Deceit, Fallen Angels, and the New World Order. It's like the thing that we exposed there and have been exposing on this channel. It's just very, very... bizarre is not even the right word. It's just obvious when you start looking at some of the things here. And this is just a list of exopolitic books here. But again, I asked the question, just basic, straightforward. Why are all the books about Jesus in the Q Anon trip code list of books about how Jesus isn't who he said he was? Very simple question.
Okay, yeah, so coming back from that, you can look at this map all you want. There's lots of stuff on here, good information, things people need to know. And again, like I said, I'll link it in the description section below. You can go check it out on my Facebook page, save a copy, save it to your computer, check it out in full screen mode. I'm using this Windows Paint. Yeah, I'm using Windows Paint. And when you zoom in, or at least on the 100% mode, it reads fine. You know, and it goes back to everything, you know. It talks about almost everything except salvation in Yeshua Jesus Christ. But even like the cloning center topic, there's guys out there, under the thumb of Donald Marshall, and I pray for them to stop believing his propaganda. I mean, that Trojan horse of a poor man, I don't even know if he knows what he's saying is true or false. So there's people out there who are buying into this whole Anunnaki Palladian nonsense, and when it goes down, it's going to be so convincing, and the Project Bluebeam and all of that, that I worry a lot of Christians are going to have a falling away of faith. Not to mention all the fakes and the finks running Israel right now. Danites are not Judeans, remember? Eh? And all roads lead to the Jesuits. This all goes back to Babylon. But yeah, I mean, that list of books alone is telling enough. People, you got to question everything, including Q. The Bible says to test all spirits. So if you're getting mad at me because I'm calling out Q, well then you're going against the Bible because I'm just testing all spirits. But even here, talking about truth in plain sight, beware those who claim to be Jews and are not. Yeah, he's talking about the Danites, the Freemasons, the light side Luciferians. And the thing is, hidden in plain sight, whatever, maybe it's just in plain sight, as Owen Benjamin would say. But I also wager, beware those who blame the real Jews for not. So like the people running Israel, the Danites, if you're going to blame them like they were actually Jews, then you're also part of the problem. You know, all Jews are Hebrew, but not all Hebrew are Jews. And also the big kicker is these Freemason types are deists. They've walked away from the Bible and the Torah, and they've chosen the Talmud and mysticism and nonsense. It's all about worshiping their weens and worshiping sex or worshiping blood and death if you're, you know, a hardcore Sith Lord, Black Lodge douche. But anyway, I guess that's all I wanted to say about that. Beware this alien agenda. I'll link a bunch of citations in the description section below. And even like this, the whole notion of the Black Pope or Petrus Romanus, Peter the Roman, even in James Casbolt's last interview before he went to jail, he claimed to have the DNA or be a clone or whatever. You know, I don't know if the guy's just bored and now he's just tugging on everybody's wang, but he claimed to be Petrus Romanus. I don't know. The last pope could be the guy that's in office right now. He's a Jesuit. And at some point, the false prophet will breathe life into the image of the beast, which I think is AI. Television is the precursor of that. Everyone is marveling after the image of the beast. People think that television is the only source of truth. And so, yeah. Look for the signs that are coming, you know. At some point, I imagine they'll attack Israel and use that as an excuse to start up the Samson protocols. And then they'll just kick it all off. It'll just snowball from there. And I'm not too sure how the fake peace will play into it. But one thing I'm pretty sure for sure is that they're going to claim Jesus was an alien, Palladian, whatever, here to save us from the Anunnakis, the bad aliens. And I just pray you all don't fall for it. And so, yeah, I guess that's all I got to say about that, you know. All these people and the cloning cults seducing people out there, pushing this Anunnaki, Palladian, Q Anon, Gnostic, Seven wannabe gods, the Sophia, Satan, Freemasonry, all of that root, it all goes back to Babylon. It all goes back to, I guess, Rome. All roads lead to Rome, the Jesuits, whatever. But I pray for people trapped in these cults. Like, I can't speak to guys that are pushing these agendas. I pray for them, but, you know, I pray people repent. But there's people out there I know who will remain nameless that, you know, I'm still praying for to this day because, you know, I mean, believing some of these cloning cults is probably even more dangerous than being a cab driver in New York. I mean, the only way out of this is Yeshua, Jesus Christ. There is no left or right-hand path. It's an illusion. That's why I use the Star Wars analogy so much. But I don't know, whatever. I don't trust the Q plan, and I don't think you should either. And the description section below will have a full list of citations, and there'll be a link to that picture, like I said, on my Facebook page or whatever. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Peace out, baby.
Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. And thank you, Steve, for the invitation. My name, as I said, was Paul Hellyer. I'm a former Minister of National Defence for Canada. I served in 3 governments during a total of 23 and a half years as a Member of Parliament. Although as Minister of National Defence, I had sighting reports of UFOs. I was too busy to be concerned about them at the time because I was trying to unify the Army, Navy and Air Force into a single Canadian Defence Force. And that itself was a kind of battle to the finish. So this was not high on my agenda. But about 10 years ago, I started getting interested due to a young man from Ottawa sending me material on the subject. I told him I was too busy to read it, but he had confidence that someday I would. He sent me a copy of Colonel Corso's book, The Day After Roswell. It took me a while to get around to reading it, but I took it for my summer reading in 2005 and was really impressed with what was contained in it. And what I thought to myself is there are huge issues here, huge issues. And the American people and the people of the world have a right to know what's going on because they're part of it. It's not just an isolated thing. And so after confirming the contents of the book with a retired United States Air Force general, I accept the invitation of Victor Vigiani, who's over here somewhere, and his cohort, Mike Bird, to speak to a symposium at the University of Toronto. And I said, UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. That gave me the dubious distinction of being the first person of cabinet rank in the G8 group of countries to say so unequivocally. Since then, I've learned a lot from many sources, including a number of the fantastic witnesses that we have heard these last 4 days. They were so outstanding, I was just really blown away with them, the amount of information that was available. And I appreciate every single one of them. But because I'm not a ufologist, I'm a politician, there are only a few things that I want to add in that particular realm. First is that about in the 1960s sometime, there was a flotilla of UFOs headed south that crossed into NATO territory in Europe. And the Commander-in-Chief of the Supreme Allied Headquarters in Europe was naturally very shaken. Fortunately, or maybe divine providence, before the panic button was pushed, the flotilla turned around and headed back north. Obviously, they had thought maybe they were Russian and they were very concerned about it. Anyway, the investigation was launched into this whole subject, and a document was prepared which concluded that at least 4 species had been visiting Earth for thousands of years. And this is my own view at this stage as well. So, except for that, there are just a couple of things that we've talked about that I'd like to refer to. And one was that we were referring to them as they until this morning when Linda Moulton Howe, I think she was the first one, actually named 3 different species. I have brought my latest book called Light at the End of the Tunnel, A Survival Plan for the Human Species, as an aide-memoir, and I name 5 different species here. I'm aware of more now. As a matter of fact, I saw a document just a few days ago that mentioned 20. And I think you, Mr. Chairman, were interested in some of the places they might come from. And I have in here Zeta Reticuli, R-E-T-I-C-U-L-I, Reticuli, the Pleiades, Orion, Andromeda, and the Altair star systems. So I don't think we can any more refer to them as they, because they're not an amorphous mass. They are different species and consequently may have different agendas. I don't think we can say that they all have the same agenda any more than we could say that the United States, China, and Russia had the same agenda. Our real interests may be very similar, but as of now, our perceived interests are still quite far apart. One more observation before I begin what I want to say, and that is that we spent quite a bit of time talking about the 66-year-old cadavers. And I was glad to have Linda this morning finally say that there are live ETs on Earth at this present time, and at least 2 of them probably working with the United States government. The other species that I learned about not too long ago was called the tall whites. And this is when Paula Harris broke the story just a few years ago. And through her good offices, I had the chance to talk for about 3 hours with former Airman Charles Hall and listen to this absolutely fascinating story of how he was working with, first of all, he was scared out of his skin, but after that, when he got to know them, how he was working with, and finally they became to trust each other and have a good working relationship with the tall whites at the gunnery range at Indian Springs in Nevada. And these tall whites were living on United States Air Force property and working in cooperation with the United States Air Force and sharing technology with them. He wrote a book, incidentally, called Millennial Hospitality. There are 4 different versions, but Paula says that Millennial Hospitality number 2 is the best. I think that's the one I read, and it's a very interesting read if you want to sort of get inside the problem of what it's like to bump into these people floating across the terrain in the desert. Well, enough on that for now. My interest is in full disclosure. And my only caveat is I think probably I would say 95 to 98% full disclosure. I know of 1 or 2 things that I'm not sure should be in the public domain, at least yet. They will be someday, I'm sure, but not maybe immediately. But just as children survive the idea of the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus when they become adult, I think that tax-paying citizens are quite capable of accepting the new and broader reality that we live in a cosmos teeming with life of various sorts. The fact that some other civilizations are more advanced than we are may be humbling, but that could be a necessary step in our survival. And finally, they need the technology for clean energy. And it exists. And it's being kept secret by the same vested interests who control our destiny. Who are these vested interests, and what are they up to? Well, Senator, you were talking about a military junta. In my opinion, that is true, but I have broadened and deepened the definition to cabal. And the cabal comprises members of the 3 sisters: the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers, and the Trilateral Commission, the International Banking Cartel, the Oil Cartel, members of various intelligence organizations, and select members of the military junta, who together have become a shadow government of not only the United States, but of much of the Western world. So anyway, you hear what Mr. Rockefeller said, and so there you have it. The aim of the game is a world government comprising members of the cabal who are elected by no one, and accountable to no one. And according to Mr. Rockefeller, the plan is well advanced. Does this help you to understand why our civil rights are being taken away from us? I say us, because all of the freedoms won by the millions of men and women who fought and died in World War II are being flushed unceremoniously down the drain. This will require a paradigm shift in American attitudes. It involves a de facto renunciation of the plan for a new American energy and the adoption of a pledge of cooperation with all humankind to build the kind of world which we are collectively capable of. Young people everywhere need to be challenged by a noble cause and lead the way in the transformation to the new reality that we have to live in harmony with our celestial neighbors as well as seeking peace on earth. In a word, we have to become spiritual beings and practice the one tenet that the world's major religions have in common, and that is the Golden Rule. In this field, too, and I just want to read one paragraph at this time, if you'll allow me, Mr. Chair.
Well, we will allow that, but there's only about 30 seconds, so I hope you can conclude it with that statement.
Fast.
Thank you.
This is from the late Dr. John Mack, an American secular Jewish psychiatrist who became a world leader in interviewing abductees, or experiencers, as he called them, came to this conclusion in a startling book, Passport to the Cosmos. Quote, although the aliens are not themselves gods, their behavior is sometimes anything but godlike. Abductees consistently report that the beings seem closer to the Godhead than we are, acting as messengers, guardian spirits, or angels, intermediaries between us and the divine source. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will ensure that our government never opens the door to the use of cloning for human reproduction. It is dangerous, profoundly wrong, and has no place in our society or any society. Now, this order is an important step in advancing
But when everything comes out, it's going to blow the lid off of everything, because this is the biggest damn story in human history. And it's simply this: you're not alone, and you have never been alone. You're not alone, and you have never been alone. You're not alone, and you have never been alone.
So what are we talking about? Basically, cloning centers, transhumanism, counterfeit immortality, the biblical point of view, Christian point of view with this, that guys like Donald Marshall are forcing off the table, and this new piece of information I got. Apparently, in all smartphones, cell phones, there's some kind of mineral crystal that they use in either the batteries or the circuit boards or something like that, that minerally speaking is also in our pineal glands, and that some people theorize they can use smartphones or some smartphones with these type of crystals in it to actually brain hack us, like with the Wi-Fi. But it's kind of like what Donald Marshall says, but if you take out the whole angle of the nefesh or the soul actually transferring, or even like with DARPA MKUltra brain chips, which is more like remote piloting a clone from across the world, like a VR headset almost. Because since the 70s, these families like mine, they've been chipping their kids. And from what I understand, the chip sort of bionetically integrates with the skeleton, cerebral cortex, or in the brain, implants, bioimplants. I mean, even L.A. Marzulli, in his show The Watchers, proved, as they were trying to remove implants in one episode, that they couldn't even see them on the scanners, the x-ray, until they prayed first. So I pray, Yeshua, Jesus, protect us all. And anyway, let's get on with this. So firstly, interesting is the topic of human cloning or transhumanism or counterfeit immortality. But even here, this chart, this timeline, I'm pretty sure Fritz Springmeier put it together, and it ends around the 2000 mark, a little before, but the idea of what was first cloned, the media is lying when they say it was Dolly the sheep. Or even if you've seen the show Doctor Who, joking aside, nobody can live for 50 years with ALS, So to me, Stephen Hawking's kind of reminded me of like Davros from Doctor Who. But if you think about it, this idea of cloning or counterfeit immortality, it's been around for a long time. I mean, the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley was written almost 100 years ago about a clone society where marriage and religion was illegal, and that you had to have these cloned orgy-porgies. You were basically genetically engineered. That's not weird or anything. Like, I mean, before the technology even existed, or did it? Some would argue that this technology is just pre-flood. Atlantis was the pre-flood empire. You know, it's not an island or a place or a singular country. It was the entire pre-flood empire. Remember, biblically speaking, Noah and his family were the only real humans left. And they were commanded to build that floating zoo and save humanity and all the species that were worth saving, all the clean animals and the unclean, and the things that were genetically pure and not tampered with and turned into Nephilim. Which brings about the topic of what are the Nephilim, if you don't have a biblical perspective, or if you've never looked into videos by guys like Rob Skiba. Because without that information, people who follow guys like Donald Marshall won't be able to discern the truth. And the truth is that any clone, or DNA augmentation, or animal-human hybrid, or any kind of transhuman cybernetic upgrade, it can risk turning people into Nephilim. Just as sure as the 33rd level Freemason blood rituals do. Now, I'm not the first person to talk about this, and it's like I say to everybody. Don't believe a word I say. Go out and research everything I say till you're blue in the face and make up your own mind. I'm not like Donald Marshall here. I don't need nobody's worship or accolades. I don't need yes men. I don't enable bad behavior, and I would not allow anyone to enable mine. So that being said, to move on with this topic of Nephilim and counterfeit immortality, another thing I noticed, Altered Carbon Season 2 came out. The show, the dystopic science fiction futuristic Netflix show, where basically transhumanism allows people to jump from body to body in these stacks, these cybernetic chips that are in the spine, attaining counterfeit immortality, where the richest of the rich in this show are called meths, which is a weird name, but it makes you think of the drug meth, but in actuality, it's named after the character in the Bible, Methuselah, one of the longest living humans. You know, that's not weird or anything. So you got all these Illuminati types, Luciferian types, that are basically trying to find immortality in our fallen forms. I don't know why anyone would want that. It's beyond me. When you read the biblical prophecy that talks about in end times there will be people who seek death and cannot find it, that sounds like kind of a nightmare to me. So yeah, long story short, I don't care if people get mad at me because I'm exposing cloning cults or transhuman cults or artificial intelligence cults, because they need to be. The Nephilim come in all shapes and sizes. They're not just giants, Giborim. They're aliens, modern-day UFO alien types, alien-human hybrids, Nephilim, any kind of genetic upgrades or genetic augmentation, much less something like the Borg. You know, robots not necessarily, because they were never alive in the first place. But that's what bothers me the most about these people who think this is romantic, or they glamorize it, or they become fanboys of it. We're talking about charnel house level shit here. And even since the beginning of butting my heads with Donald Marshall, I never wanted any of this stuff to be even on the table because it's so bizarre. I'd almost rather that he'd be lying completely. So these days, whenever one of his culties or his social media puppets chimes in on my posts, it's like, come on, man. Who are you talking to? I'm one of the world's leading experts on this. Begrudgingly, you know? Like, after Dad got clipped and I found out about this, I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask for Donald to pick a fight with me. I didn't ask for all this hatred just because I bring the Christian perspective to the table. But I called him out on his nonsense bullshit, you know, and since then I've had nothing but headaches over it. So yeah, like, I was a victim of MK Ultra programming, just like James Casbolt. Allegedly, that guy might even be my cousin. So yeah, if these fanboys got any questions, you know, I got the answers, whilst they're living vicariously through this topic as others like myself live it, you know. And until Donald Marshall apologizes to me, I don't think there can be any forward-thinking, forward-moving with this. But I just find it sad that they keep pushing this transhuman counterfeit immortality. Like, again, this show Altered Carbon, you know, making it sexy to be able to jump from body to body and jack yourself in and nonsense. It's just, I don't know, I'm just sick of it. So I just wanted to make this quick video because I felt the Holy Spirit call me to say, look into this. Transhumanism, all this cybernetic upgrade stuff, Nephilim, cloning, it should all be illegal because we're getting into the times of Noah here. And that's not good. These are not good prophecies to be a part of. Like I said before, people will wish for death and not be able to find it. Like, roll that around the old noodle for a while. I guess on the topic of cloning, this hybridization program, the super soldier program, all the stuff that James Casbolt and Donald Marshall talk about, albeit, like I said before, I believe is misdirection, as they're trying to leave the spiritual side of this equation off the table. But in the show Altered Carbon, Season 2, Episode 2, they reintroduced a character who's essentially a super soldier clone with human wolf hybridized DNA, which is something James Casbolt talked about years ago. The idea of hybridizing these super soldiers with wolf DNA to make them more efficient killers, and also so that when they operate as a combat unit, they have this sort of Sixth Sense pack mentality, but a lot of that is moot in the sense of just this comparison or just this video I wanted to make, because the idea of Nephilim, the thing about TV and movies is they're romanticizing it like it's sexy or like it's something that you should want. And the truth of the matter is they're leaving the spiritual side off the table on purpose. Now, a couple of people commented, and I'll just go through my post here and talk about it. I noticed Rob Skiba liked my post here. That's cool. I know I'm not on the same page as everybody about this, but I know something similar to what the mainstream story is happening because I have memories there, and I know that due to something that my dad did, I was a form of washout or throwaway from these MK Ultra programs. But the idea that they're leaving the spiritual side off the table on purpose, because then it seems sexy or attractive to people to want this technology, to want to be these augmented humans, or, to live forever with counterfeit immortality. But the thing is, and I say it later and I'll say it before, the idea of body sleeving or switching bodies, or James Casbolt, how he bragged in his one interview about basically downloading into an augmented clone and then sacrificing his original body to Lucifer at the Bohemian Grove hangman ritual. If you become a Nephilim, your soul moves on, in my opinion, and all that's left is the consciousness, the flesh. The Bible talks about people having nothing but evil continually, or as in the times of Noah, that they look human, but they're evil continually. Guys like Donald Marshall refer to them as chip heads or dead heads. They claim they're like the characters in Pet Sematary. Their humanity and their soul has been washed away. Well, that's my theory as well, in the sense of once the soul moves on, the consciousness is just flesh. And James Casbolt brags about this stuff. He brags about being a Mormon priest. He brags about being into the Satanism. He brags about being all okay with it. Also, a lot of people would say they think he was replaced at one point. And so, like I said, I'm going to have to make a video about this. Years ago, James Casbolt, before he was replaced, allegedly, he talked about the Super Soldier program that people like me and him were in, Project Mannequin, Project Ibis. Anyone who made the cut, like the RH negatives, they went to the Super Soldier program, and the RH positives, like me, went to the remote viewing program. He talked about how their DNA would be spliced with wolves to create this ultimate super soldier, the canine senses of a wolf, the ferocity and the hunting ability. It's almost like the instinctual ability to gene splice that in there with CRISPR technology, and also the pack familiarity idea of a sixth sense. He claims to be part of a lot of UFO retrieval teams, but obviously we know now that that's nothing more than nonsense, with the proofs out there like Gonzo Shamira's film Age of Deceit proving that fallen angels are real, and whatever alien technology that we're encountering or seeing these days is just simply back-engineered fallen angel tech from Antarctica, something Hitler found in World War II that got all this going. But this nonsense that aliens are little green men from Uranus, that's Nephilim nonsense. So yeah, in Season 2, Episode 2 of Altered Carbon, a confrontation with this villain and this peon police officer.
So, who do you think cast into the sleeve, Detective?
They start mentioning how altering our genome is stupid. But yeah, it was like, as far as the clip in Altered Carbon, I can't really show it in its entirety or I'll get a silly-ass copyright strike, so I can show it in little pieces, right?
The sleeve our perp cast into. Now that thing is a freak show.
That's mil-spec. Unregistered.
But the idea that this character here, who almost seems like he's based on James Casbolt, has this conversation with this peon police officer character.
Well, whoever designed it was into some up gene splicing. They cut in canine DNA. Killer's part dog.
You sure it wasn't Wolf?
Wolf. Dog. What's the difference?
Where basically they talk about the idea that after testing these sleeves, this idea that bodies are referred to as sleeves, that they just download into a new body, whatever.
Start messing with your genome like that, next thing you know, you got a snout and 4 legs.
He discovers that the main character has been spliced with canine DNA, or he says dog DNA. And the villain corrects him, don't you mean wolf?
Here's my considered opinion. If you kick a dog, it'll crawl back, lick your foot, begging for forgiveness. Kick a wolf. And you rip your face off.
But yeah, like, I mean, going through the comments here, James asked for more information. He says he's looking forward to the video. Well, I'm making it right now. But yeah, while I'm trying to do this, I'm thinking of the Casbolt interviews. I'll link a couple in the description section below. I'm not going to go through the countless hours and hours of footage. It would be so time consuming, but in one of the interviews he talks about how he was spliced together with wolf DNA, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to obviously do that, but I'm pretty sure it was one of the older interviews he did when he was still skinny like me, before he did the hangman ritual, before he went to jail, whatever, whoever he is now. But yeah, James Casbolt is an interesting fellow. Like I says, don't believe everything he says. You gotta chew up the meat and spit out the bones. I mean, the guy is an admitted assassin. He's an admitted darksider. He claims to be a Mormon. He claims to also be part of the Peter the Roman Petrus Romanus prophecy. So in all these interviews on YouTube, I wouldn't trust what he says. Like I says, the alien agenda, as Donald Marshall also pushes, you got to chew up the meat and spit out the bones. But yeah, this is supposedly him at some Rockefeller Foundation thing years ago, where he claims right after this, he assassinated somebody at this event, and then that person was immediately replaced with a clone or some such in New York City. And I'm pretty sure the blonde woman standing next to him is his wife. However, onwards and upwards, Caesar chimed in about the Mark of the Beast and the New World Order transhumanism. I was like, well, this is all part and partial. But I mean, like, the Mark of the Beast is the ultimate goal, or what the Bible talks about, the end game. That if people take the Mark of the Beast, that's the last chance. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things happening up until that point. And Guido chimes in talking about Yahweh. And I don't really understand this comment. Maybe the translation screwed it up. But I would assume he meant to say, I told you that God, Yahweh, told Joel, JD, that it was going to be like Altered Carbon. Like I told you. These two seem to have a shorthand. Maybe they're friends in real life. I don't know this before or after World War III. It's going to be later in the future. But it's already happening now. That's the point. This stuff has already been happening since the 70s. And so I say here, translation mistakes aside, I'm on the same page as Rob Skiba. I think the Mark of the Beast will be some form of vaccination which will alter people's DNA, our DNA, with CRISPR technology, in addition to the RFID chip everyone's all focused, obsessed on. So those who don't take the vaccine, those who don't accept it, whether it also has to do with the Nassaro, one-time Luciferian Saint Germain Jubilee, I believe the people who refuse it will be set aside. They will be put in the FEMA camps or whatever. That's my opinion. Whether it has to do with fear porn around things like corona and bioweapons is beyond me. But as I was saying, before all that ends up going down, If you willingly become a Nephilim clone, like James Caswell talked about at the Bohemian Grove ritual, then you're basically a short-sighted fool. Like, that's some friggin' dumb, in my opinion. And then Guido goes on to say, yes, they are gone to the lake of fire while Satan gets legal rights over the clone. They are done and away with, tricked by the devil. Well, that's the thing. The Bible talks about the flesh not being susceptible to the law. The flesh is just the flesh. It is something to be left behind. But I also believe that the consciousness people always talk about in consciousness transferring is separate from the soul. I think consciousness, personality, is a byproduct or a result of putting a soul in a body. So if you separate the soul from the consciousness can still exist, but it will be evil continually. Without a soul, all it is just a copy of a personality, really, I think. And then Guido says, yeah, my take on it is using memories, as you refer to consciousness, in organic clone robotoids, and it makes you feel like you've achieved immortality, while in reality, no one has power over the soul but the creator. The person goes to judgment, but the clone with the memory lingers around for Satan to toy with. Yeah, I agree. And I do think that's what happens to a lot of these celebrities and politicians, is they agree to be cloned. They do this ritual like James Caswell talks about, and then that's it. It's on like Donkey Kong. They're irredeemable, and their soul has moved on to be judged. And yeah, like what Donald Marshall calls chipheads or deadheads. And then Guido goes on to talk about how his mother's wife used to be a Santiera priest, and when they would go to the cemetery to find bones and stuff, they were warned by demons not to step onto the graves of Christians. That's creepy. And this is well known amongst Satanists. So if you are aligned with Yahuwah, God the Father in heaven, and Yeshua, Jesus Christ, they have no legal right to touch you or even your bones. That's interesting. That makes me think, too, of the Bible where the angel fought to protect Moses' bones. So I doubt they have any form of control over our soul. Yeah, I don't believe that they have that kind of access. That's giving them too much power. Donald Marshall wants us to believe that they can just pluck your soul out of your body and transfer it into a clone. Well, Donald Marshall's a liar. I mean, all this other stuff like poison, 5G and whatnot, that's all just icing on the cake as far as I'm concerned. But however, as far as this video goes, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. That Altered Carbon references the Super Soldier program the way James Caswell described it almost 10 years ago. And yeah, I just thought that was worth making a video about. So that's all I got to say about that, really. Do your own research. Make up your own opinions. Don't believe a word I say. Research everything I say. And for the love of God, don't buy into people like Donald Marshall and his cloning cult without some discernment. Because too many people just blindly follow this thing and romanticize it like some kind of counterfeit immortality savior. It's like, no, this is dumb. This is short-sighted and dumb. If you want to shovel out parts of your brain and replace it with technology, or if you want to, carve out your soul and sit in its heart, this is dumb. And so anyone who romanticizes this needs to be warned that if you do this, you're damned. And there's a reason why. So please check out the citations in the description section below, because transhumanism and Christianity cannot mix. I pray Yeshua, Jesus, the Son, Yahuwah, God the Father in heaven, please protect us from things like night terrors, sleep paralysis, evils like succubi or incubi, much less from REM downloading, astral attackers, forced astral travel, or lucid dream travel. So at that, I'll just say peace out.